This is an interview with Oklahoma City Mayor Patience Latting. It was made on July 29, 1973.
Headliners, a discussion with people who make the news. Headliners is a public affairs presentation.
This is News Director Bob Durgan on Headliners today, and with me is City Hall reporter Barbara Roberts, and our guest today is Oklahoma City Mayor, Her Honorable Patience Latting. Welcome to Headliners, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Bob. It's good to be here.
Mayor, now the reason we invited you to Headliners today at this point in time is because, of course, of the corruption investigation within city government. For weeks, the city government and its officials and the citizens as well have been in the throes of a fascinating shakeup, at least it is to some. And last week, of course, the city council majority, you included, pulled a sensational move when you went to the top of the administration within city government and fired city manager Nate Ross. Now it leaves me wondering who's next, what's next, when will it end, and is it going to end? More importantly, some say it's opening the door to questions about just how this power purge, be it warranted or not, maybe I should rephrase that and say just how much power this purge, be it warranted or not, will put in the hands of the mayor's office. I think I'll let Barbara start the program with the first question.
Thank you, Bob. Welcome, Mayor. It's good to have you here.
Barbara.
Fine, thank you. First of all, my initial question, I think the question that's in the minds of many is that you have intimated, and some have intimated, that the city manager was fired because he was involved, perhaps, in the extortion investigation. But we really haven't gotten specific. How was he involved? And are you accusing Ross of being involved in bribery, taking money, or what?
I think you're mistaken, Barbara, in your assumption that I have ever said that the reason Ross was fired was because he was involved in the corruption at City Hall. I have never made that statement, nor, contrary to what Mr. Durgan said, has there been a power purge at City Hall. I think we ought to set this in the proper setting in view of the understanding of the council city manager form of government, and this is something there's been a great deal of confusion about in the last few weeks. I think we ought to set it straight. Under the council city manager form of government, the day-to-day administration of the city and the operation of the various departments is the responsibility of the city manager. It is the responsibility of the council and the mayor, as the elected representatives of the people, to make sure that the operations of the city are conducted in an honest and efficient way. The members of the council who were elected in April did pledge to the people. When I was elected mayor 2 years ago, you will recall that I spoke often of good, honest government, which I believe then the people of Oklahoma City wanted and which I believe they want now. The election in April indicated that the people still wanted that kind of government. And so this council has a responsibility to the people who elected them, to the citizens of Oklahoma City, to do what they can under the charter to have good, honest, efficient government in Oklahoma City. Now, for many months, the city manager has been aware of the fact that there have been violations of the city codes and ordinances. On repeated instances, it has been brought to his attention, sometimes in council meeting, that buildings, even apartment buildings, have gone up without building permits being issued. There have been many land uses in violation of the zoning ordinances. And of course, since June the 12th, when a citizen appeared before the city council and gave information relating to apparent extortion, bribery, and threats against the lives of citizens, there has been unfolding during the investigation, a series of irregularities, apparent crimes, all sorts of things which have been uncovered that have been going on at City Hall for years. And so, as I said earlier, there is one man at City Hall who is accountable under the council, city manager form of government for
Mayor.
the day-to-day administration of the city. That man is the city manager. If he is not doing the job, or apparently is not capable of doing the job, then it is the responsibility of the city council and the mayor to replace him with a man who can do the job.
Mayor, how long have you suspected crimes? How long may you even have known that there were certain wrongdoings being committed within city government?
I have not had the kind of evidence which has come forth during this investigation, Mr. Durgan, until such time as these matters began to be brought forth by the citizens beginning in June. At that time, a copy of a check came forth, which was made to an electrical inspector by an electrical contractor in payment to that electrical inspector for a license, which should cost, I believe it's $25 or $50, whatever it is. But the check was for several $1,000s, $3,000 as I recall. Now, for months, even for years, I have publicly brought to the attention of council members, the press, and the citizens of Oklahoma City the fact that the building codes and the zoning ordinances of Oklahoma City were being violated repeatedly. And so this is something that, insofar as violations of the Oklahoma City codes and ordinances are concerned, has been a matter of public record for months.
But Mayor Latting, the city manager can't go around just firing people arbitrarily. Should it not have come about a long time ago in an investigation form and then suspensions and firings? You can't just say somebody is guilty, let's fire him now. Wouldn't that be hurting someone's character? I don't understand the term you use.
On this matter of hurting someone's character, Miss Roberts, whether a person has a good character or not does not necessarily fit him for a particular responsibility. There are many people of excellent character who would not necessarily be capable of serving as city manager of a city of the size and complexity of Oklahoma City. Now, as to arbitrarily and precipitously, as you indicate, firing a man, when notices of violations of codes and ordinances and irregularities have been brought repeatedly to the attention of the city manager himself, when he has been unable to find a way to run a tight ship so that these things do not recur time and time again over a period of many months, then there certainly is an inadequacy in the administration of the operation of the city.
Well, wasn't there an investigation, I think about a year ago? Didn't the city auditor look into the matter and did not find anything? And isn't the city auditor under the auspices of the city council?
The investigation of which you speak was with regard to the water department. It was some months ago. The report which he made was given to the city manager. The need for the investigation, nor the report of the investigation, was ever forwarded to the city council by the city manager's office. So the city council was not even made aware of this investigation, nor the report. I would like to comment, too, on an investigation which was requested about a year ago, I think perhaps a little over a year ago, with regard to the Electrical Inspection Department, the very department which has been under such thorough investigation in the current investigation by the committee. And at that time, the police made some investigation of the charges. They did not follow through. For some reason, the investigation was stopped. At that time, the fact that an investigation was needed was made known to Chief Watson and to Nate Ross. The investigation was stopped after some period, I think perhaps 3 or 4 weeks. I'm not sure as to the exact duration of time.
Have you asked the police chief why it was stopped?
I have asked the police chief why it was stopped. He has used the phrase, and I think I may quote him, that it was, quote, a shoddy investigation.
What does that mean?
I would assume that it means, at best, that it was not well conducted.
By his own department?
Perhaps you'd best talk to Chief Watson about what he feels on this.
Well, does that mean that you're disappointed in the chief and the police department's effort in that initial investigation of the office where recent corruption surfaced?
I think one can say that we could certainly not be anything less than disappointed, particularly since so much has been found during the current investigation, and the things that have been found by the investigating committee and which were brought forth by the citizen at the council meeting of June 12th had transpired or were transpiring a year ago. The same kind of things were.
Does that mean that you'll be seeking the resignation of the police chief?
I have not said, Mr. Durgan, I was seeking the resignation of the police chief.
I'm asking.
I am saying that a year ago an investigation was begun of the very department in which apparent corruption and extortion and bribery have been going on for years, that an investigation of that department was begun a year ago and was stopped.
Mayor, there are 2 questions that are left in my mind, at least 2 at this point. One of them was that my first question about intimating that Ross was involved. I am referring probably, and I better clarify that, to a news conference that Councilman Tony Zahn held the other day where he said that he felt like Ross was slow to act and did not fire people that were his friends. He never let us question him, so we don't know if he was inferring that he was involved in the extortion investigation or the allegations. All we know is that Tony Zahn has a question in his mind, but that's as far as it's gotten. Let's be specific. Are you saying that Nate Ross was involved, or are you just saying that he was slow to move?
I'm saying that when we look at the results that have been obtained, or perhaps I should say the lack of results that have been obtained in the operations of the departments at City Hall, one cannot say, looking at the record certainly that has been exposed in the last few weeks and even beyond that back into previous months here, that there has not been apparently an honest and efficient operation of Oklahoma City.
We pause for a moment to remind our listeners this is the program Headliners. Today our guest is the Honorable Mayor Patience Latting, the subject alleged corruption within city government and the firing of the city manager. Mayor, on that police investigation, once again, I want to get back on that. That intrigues me. Of a year ago that you say was not carried nearly as far as it should have been. And you have, I've interpreted your statements here today as meaning that you are disappointed in the police department, you are disappointed in the police chief. Obviously, the next question, and I'll ask it again, is if you are disappointed to the degree which you've just expressed, it sounds like you may be seeking the ouster of the police chief. Has that at least crossed your mind? If you can't answer yes or no, if they did allegedly stifle an investigation at the orders of anybody or on their own initiative, it doesn't seem likely that you, as you've displayed your actions thus far, would just simply chalk it up and forget it.
all the actions or any opinion that I may have with regard to the violation of codes and ordinances or the proper administration of Oklahoma City, I have indicated to the people of Oklahoma City, Mr. Durgan. And I think that the citizens of Oklahoma City need to be kept informed as to what their elected officials believe is happening. And as the mayor and the council city manager form of government, I cannot fire, nor can I hire, nor can I promote a police chief. This is the responsibility of the city manager.
Well, you're an elected official and you have a right to your opinion. You are the mayor.
I have certainly indicated that I am disappointed that the investigation begun a year ago was not carried forward.
Former city manager Nate Ross has accused you and other councilmen of influencing him, or trying to hire and fire certain department heads. Do you deny that?
I think Mr. Ross is jumping at conclusions that are certainly not warranted if he chooses to infer that when I say that the building codes and ordinances are being violated, then if Mr. Ross in his mind feels that the building director should be fired in order for the codes and ordinances to be enforced, then that's his decision. What I'm asking for, and this I have to ask for on behalf of the people, is that the codes and the ordinances and the laws of Oklahoma City are enforced.
All right, the city charter, Mayor, states that rather prohibits the city council from ordering or using influence on a city manager to hire or fire, or it stops the council by way of an ordinance from influencing the city manager and making any decisions regarding personnel, does it not?
The provisions regarding the division of responsibilities among the council, the mayor, and the city manager are incorporated in the charter. I don't believe the ordinances expand on that. I believe all those provisions are to be found in the charter, Bob.
All right, what procedures are laid out to enforce that? Is it up to the council to enforce the ordinance as to whether or not the city manager will not be influenced, or is it up to the city attorney, or who? What body or person?
The charter provides that the policy is to be set by the council and the mayor. This is very clearly spelled out. The legislative body under the council city manager form of government is made up of the council and mayor. The administration, that is the day-to-day operations of the city, are to be taken care of by the city manager. You know, this is a part of the reform movement that swept through the country. It was pretty much in the 1920s, I understand, when a great many cities adopted this form of government.
Well, then I interpret that as meaning then that if that portion of the city charter, if it was ever violated by a majority of the council, that being influencing the city manager, then it would be up to the council to police itself. And if the majority of a council somewhere along the line influences the city manager, it stands to reason that same council majority is not going to slap itself on the wrist and say, we violated the charter. Isn't that a weak point? Shouldn't we have a better way to enforce that?
I think in this charter we must realize that the division of responsibilities here and the duties is very much a two-way thing. Under the charter, the city manager is required to carry out the policies of the council. You understand that the council and the mayor are elected by the people. The city manager is hired by the council for the day-to-day operation and to carry out the policies. Now, this council informed the city manager that they wanted the building code enforced, they wanted the zoning ordinances enforced, and they felt that this was their responsibility for this to be done. And they informed the city manager that this is what they wanted done.
Okay, but I'm asking...
Despite the fact that the city manager was informed that a strict enforcement of the codes and ordinances was to be the policy to be administered by him, We have the repeated examples of the violations of the building code. We have apparent extortion and bribery and graft in the electrical inspection department. The investigation is now spreading to the water department, to the park department, where already illegal use of city supplies, equipment, and manpower have apparently been going on for many months. It's going to spread in the weeks to come to other departments, and I think the most charitable thing that can be said at this point is that things are in a mess at City Hall.
Okay, but you haven't answered my question. If a city council, somewhere along the line, influences a city manager, something which the charter prohibits, what body is charged with proving that, investigating that? The councilman, right? I'm asking. Who else is there?
I don't know what provision there is in the city council on that. I might say that, like Franklin D. Roosevelt used to say so often, this is a very iffy question, Bob.
Enough said. Barbara?
I'm wondering, aren't we saying then, and some have called this a so-called Latting block. I was not here at the time, but I am told that one of the strongest things you opposed was the so-called Bishop block. Aren't we again getting into the same stigma that we had before?
I think the actions that a public official takes must be judged on the basis of whether they are right for the general good of the people of Oklahoma City. I don't believe you will find that I ever said that it was wrong for 5 people or 6 people or 7 or even 9 people all to vote in the same way on issues, providing that those votes are directed toward the interest of the people of Oklahoma City and not toward the preservation or the profit of special money interests rather than the good of the people.
So what we've got here is the so-called past Bishop block saying the same thing you've just said. They said that, sure, there's a block, but we feel as though we're doing what's right for the city. And now there's an apparent Latting block on many, many issues, and you're saying that it's for the good of the city. So they're saying the same thing you've said, and it's up to the voter, naturally, to decide who's right and who they want to believe. You've also said that, but nevertheless, there's a block.
Last April, the people of Oklahoma City indicated they did not agree with the Bishop block, that the actions of the Bishop block had been for the good of the people of Oklahoma City, and I think the people spoke rather resoundingly to that point, Bob.
Okay, well, I'm not arguing that. I'm just trying to get you to admit that there's a Latting block.
I would not admit that there's a Latting block. You will find that there have been differences on the votes. I would say that if people of good conscience agree that a certain course of action is a proper one and one that would benefit the city as a whole and their ward, why then they should vote the same on that issue. But I can assure you there is no one person nor no one special interest nor any combination of special interests directing the majority of the council.
Councilman Zahn admitted at his news conference the other day that there was a Latting block. He said if there is a Latting block, and there probably is at this point, then, and if this will get it done, then that is what we need to do. Would you like to agree with the councilman, or what?
I think you'll find on any given issue that there have to be 5 members of the council voting together. No one can argue that in a legislative body there has to be a majority on an issue or else it wouldn't pass. I think what needs to be considered is, over the long range and in the light of a continuing program, whether certain members of the council have cast votes on issues in such a way that Oklahoma City is enabled to progress and that we are enabled to have honest and efficient government. And this is what certainly I am seeking.
Mayor, you have wanted, or so it seems, an administrative assistant put in the new budget as well as a researchist. But at the council meeting this past Tuesday, that was not brought up. It just so happens that it was also the same time Nate Ross, who has been opposed to this was fired. Does this have any merit as the fact that we now have an acting city manager and you are chairman of the committee to find a new city manager? Does that mean that you will really get what you want anyway?
I don't see, and I have not seen at any point in time, that it was absolutely necessary for me to have an administrative assistant. As you may recall, I was out of the city. I was in Europe during the time that apparently some discussions took place on my budget, and I had, when I left the city, Mr. Ross and I had reached agreement on what the budget would include, and so I have had no argument with Mr. Ross since I left Oklahoma City on my budget.
Ross has in the past argued privately, and now he's arguing publicly, that there had been times where the different branches of government, his duties, clashed with certain things said by councilmen, including yourself. With Ross gone, there's going to be a question raised when we get a new permanent city manager as to whether or not he is going to be more inclined to listen to a majority of the city council in connection with personnel matters, or is he going to strictly adhere to what the city charter calls for and say it's really none of the council's business how I handle personnel matters?
The charter reads that no council member nor the mayor should order or request the city manager either to hire, fire, or promote a city employee. Insofar as the city manager listening to a council member or the mayor with regard to what they believe to be the proper functioning of the city, I think the city manager is obligated to listen to every city council member and the mayor when they bring ideas to him as to what they believe may be the situation with regard to the honest and efficient functioning of the government.
Mayor, are you thinking of running for higher public office?
I have no intention of doing so, and that's it. I am kept rather busy filling the office of mayor of Oklahoma City, and I find this very interesting and challenging.
We've run out of time. Mayor, it was a pleasure having you on Headliners today. With me as news editor Barbara Roberts, this is Bob Durgan reporting.
Headliners, a discussion with people who make the news, has been a public affairs presentation. This program was pre-recorded.